It all started when the Goblin Chief passed away. Two soldiers who were there at the time of the leader's demise initiated a fight to determine who would claim the weapon. In a fit of rage, one goblin lunged at the other, who was gripping the club, asserting that he would become the new chief. Being the two strongest soldiers, they engaged in a fierce battle for the weapon while the other goblins looked on, cheering for the combatants. The soldiers exchanged blows and bites. At that moment, one of the little monsters recalled that the chief had left some captives unharmed, and they decided to retrieve them. However, the goblins remembered that the guardian of the prisoners was about to return. To everyone's astonishment, the creature they were talking about appeared. It was a goblin unlike any other. Everyone halted and gawked at the enigmatic figure striding past them, commenting on how human-like he appeared due to his attire. With the aim of locating the former chief's captives, the goblins resolved to follow the guardian. Then, one of the little monsters remarked that some of the tribe's mightiest men had already departed, and that once the fighting commenced, they would seize the chance. Upon hearing this, the guardian grew uneasy. At that moment, the young man dashed towards the captives, hearing cries for help and fearing for the victim's safety. Our protagonist hurried towards the source of the screams. The boys soon spotted the cave where the captive was held. Upon reaching the location of the cries, the guardian discovered goblins assaulting a young woman. At that instant, one of the little monsters fixated on the captive, while the woman grew increasingly frantic, convinced that this was her final moment. Terrified, the girl began to scream for help, pleading to be saved without any intention of harming the prisoner. The guardian commanded the goblins to set her free, and seemingly the group leader complied, releasing the woman. He informed the young man that the chief was deceased, thus the captive would now belong to him. The strongest goblin warned the boy that if he attempted to take the woman, there would be dire repercussions. In a swift move, the group leader instructed the others to attack the guardian and eliminate him. Following the command, the goblins charged at the young man, intent on keeping the woman. Our protagonists found themselves in a desperate situation, ambushed by a swarm of tiny monsters. In disbelief, the boy watched as his life was threatened by these dreadful low-level goblins, igniting a fierce determination within him not to succumb. As the will to survive surged, something unexpected occurred. To everyone's surprise, our protagonist drew a knife and dispatched one of the attackers, sending the others into a state of fear. The guardian demonstrated his resolve to fight for his life, refusing to be easily defeated. Witnessing the young man wielding a knife, the little monsters panicked and fled in terror. One goblin shouted to the leader to escape, warning that the guardian was armed. Exhausted but victorious, the boy frightened his attackers. At that moment, the young woman, who was on the verge of becoming a hostage to those vile goblins, expressed her gratitude to her hero, who appeared weary from the struggle. Yet, it seemed the guardian was too weak, and the girl pleaded with him not to die, hoping he would continue to protect her. After hearing her words, our protagonist, who had once been human, began to contemplate his situation. Suddenly, a screen appeared before his eyes, indicating that the system was initializing. We then learned that our protagonist's name is Elven Tyan, who had reincarnated as a goblin with a system after being struck by a truck. However, the screen only displayed basic statistics, lacking any advanced functions that could prove truly beneficial. Despite everything, after hearing the girl's words, the boy began to grasp the reality of the world he had been reborn into. At that moment, he started to delve into the realm crafted by deities, a place teeming with formidable monsters. Our protagonist noted that humans had carved out their territory on that continent through sheer strength. However, the goblin he had reincarnated as was the weakest and most repugnant creature in that realm. Tion remarked that his stats were so abysmally low that even among goblins, he could be easily dispatched. Gazing at the girl, the young man recalled that in this world, there existed a method to grow stronger, by creating new life with females. He pointed out that goblins could enhance their power through mating and relentless reproduction, but he lacked any females, which was why they resorted to abducting girls. Reflecting on the harsh existence in this land, The boy lamented that he had once been human and found the idea of resorting to such actions for strength utterly vile. The girl then interjected, revealing that after spending a few days with her guardian, she had come to realize he was different and that he did not wish to live among those goblins. Tion was once again taken aback by her words. At that moment, the girl informed the boy that when the Night Order came to rescue her, she would tell them he had saved her, and they would allow him to reside in the village. Suddenly, something seemed to terrify Tion. Our protagonist warned that the goblins had returned to capture the girl, prompting him to urge her to hide once more. As he prepared to defend his friend, a dreadful goblin, desperate to gain strength, appeared as expected. Linon is determined not to let the girl be taken away easily. The boy strikes the goblin with a knife, and afterward, our protagonist tells the girl that the humans have arrived to rescue her, filling her with joy. Convinced that it is the Sacred Order, the girl rushes towards her rescuer. Suddenly, Tion halts, noticing something strange. Tion encounters a remarkably powerful human who defeats several goblins with a single blow. Linon is in awe of witnessing such strength in that world. Next, the so-called hero, who came to save the girl, becomes annoyed upon realizing that those filthy creatures have torn his Sacred Order uniform. At that moment, Tion observes the astonishing stats of Lauder. Tion wonders if that powerful man is truly human, as it is the first time he has seen such high stats since arriving in this world, except for Ext. The girl runs towards her savior, calling him captain, while Tion is impressed by how easily they handled the group of goblins. Then, something terrifying leaves Tion horrified. It seems the man is not there to save her. Tion quickly reacts upon seeing that Lauder is about to finish the girl, saving her once again like a true hero. The boy grabs the girl, pushing her away from the captain, not comprehending what is truly happening. Tion wonders why the Sacred Order has come if it wasn't to rescue the imprisoned people. Irritated, Lur declares it a disgrace that a goblin managed to evade his powerful attack. Then, as promised, the girl informs the captain that the little monster had protected her. Unexpectedly, Lauder becomes furious at the girl's claims, believing she is lying and trying to make a fool of him, and decides to finish her off. In disbelief, Tion rushes to save her once more. Frustrated, our protagonist instructs the girl to leave the area and points out a safe route without considering the dangers. Tion, in a rash decision, chooses to confront Lauder armed only with a club. Suddenly, a light emerges from the cave's darkness, and Tion stands frozen, eyes wide in shock. A woman appears, urging Lur to wait, while Tion is shielded by a magical barrier. Then, a formidable mage arrives, flanked by an army of knights, informing the captain that the goblin seems somewhat unusual. Next, the prisoner bows before the woman, calling her the Holy Maiden and pleading for her protection. In desperation, the girl implores the mage to rescue her. The Holy Maiden then asks Tion if he comprehends her words. Filled with hope, Tion finds himself face to face with Afra, the temple spokesperson he has heard so much about, believing this is his sole opportunity to escape. He assures the Holy Maiden that he understands her, confident in his impending salvation. He explains to the mage that he is not a monster from that realm but rather a human reincarnated after an accident. Lur mentions that Tion appears more intelligent than the others, to which the mage responds to her ally that the goblin could be a blessing from the Sacred Mother. Afra then inquires of Kelia whether the boy truly did not harm her, and the girl replies that not only did he not hurt her, but he also protected her and provided her with food. As anticipated, the Holy Maiden informs the girl that due to Tion's uniqueness, they will take him to the village first for thorough examination before making any decisions. With a smile radiating confidence, the mage asks the boy if he is willing to accompany her to the village, believing it to be his only chance for salvation. The boy affirms to the saint that he will go with them. After Afra releases him from the magical shield, Tion expresses his relief that finally someone will hear him out, and he will have the opportunity to prove his innocence. Exiting the cave, the mage commands Lauder to follow her. As he walks alongside his so-called rescuers, Linon expresses gratitude to his savior for her kindness, promising to repay her properly. But then, something shocking occurs. Without warning, Lower suddenly plunges his sword into Kelly's stomach. Linon, horrified, whirls around just in time to see the captain finishing off his protege, throwing him into utter despair. With the eyes of a goblin, Linon watches helplessly as Kelly lies lifeless on the ground. He can't believe what he's seeing. His friend, slain by the very person she had trusted as her savior. Overcome with disbelief and anguish, Linon collapses into despair, unable to comprehend the betrayal. Mockingly, the holy maiden turns to Linon, her voice dripping with sarcasm and cruelty, telling him that when they reach the village, he'd better make sure to reward her generously. That a week later, the church bell rings in the village, summoning its residents. Standing beside the holy maiden, Lower addresses the gathered villagers, claiming the goblin attack caused serious harm to their peaceful town. He tells them the creatures launched a stealthy assault, brutally massacring 30 people. Furious, the villagers cry out, denouncing goblins as vile creatures and declaring them humanity's sworn enemies. Using images of the slain as proof, Lower insists that the sacred order, acting under the temple's command, has already purified the monsters in the name of justice and vengeance for the fallen. Taking over the speech, the holy maiden urges the villagers to continue praying faithfully to the temple. Supporting her, the mage reassures them that the temple will always protect its devoted followers. The crowd erupts in praise for the knights of the sacred order. Meanwhile, in a shadowy space resembling a laboratory crossed with a dark library, the holy maiden smugly declares the sermon a success, calling the villagers ignorant fools. Ephas agrees, noting that the people will now pray even harder and offer more tributes to the temple. We then discover Linon's fate. He's been imprisoned, gagged, and chained, calling out weakly for the mage. The holy maiden gazes at him coldly, showing no pity. Linon, now missing an eye and seething with rage, hurls insults at Aphra, calling her a wretch. Unfazed, the holy maiden stares at him, his body pinned against a wall littered with experimental markings. She remarks with interest on his resilience, surprised he's still alive. Perhaps, she muses, that's why the temple hasn't yet succeeded in eradicating the goblins. Deciding to push his limits, she injects him with a more potent poison to observe the results. The agony becomes unbearable. Linon, desperate, recalls how the sacred order had deceived everyone and murdered Kelly. Through gritted teeth, he asks if this cruelty is what humans call justice. Enraged by the accusation, the holy maiden strikes him under the chin. She scoffs, saying it's absurd for such a lowly, disgusting creature to question human justice. Revealing her true disdain, Nia declares that goblins are no better than insects, and speaking to one like him is already an undeserved courtesy. She casts a spell and demands Linon be grateful, commanding him to use his pitiful body in service of human experiments and the sacred order. She conjures a magic circle that begins siphoning his energy. Linon can hardly resist the torment that he begins to blame himself for clinging to human emotions even after reincarnating as a goblin, naively believing in human decency. He recalls being dragged to the village, tortured and experimented on by Lower and Aphra, every plea he made falling on deaf ears. Eventually, his battered body can endure no more, and he is finally finished off by the sadistic holy maiden. As his soul crosses over, Linon bitterly vows that if given another chance, he would never again trust humans, and if he could, he'd crush their bones in revenge. Then, something unexpected happens. As he contemplates what he would do if reincarnated again, Linon finds himself in a strange virtual world and wonders if he's still alive. To his amazement, the Goblin life simulation system activates and asks if he wishes to reincarnate. Trying to make sense of it all, Linon deduces this must be a personal system that only triggers upon death. He is stunned to realize he has a chance to come back, but he'd have to start over again as a low-level goblin. Linon asks what yes and no mean. The system explains, if he chooses no, his existence ends here. But if he chooses yes, he'll return to a week prior, with all his current memories intact till last. Linon understands. The second chance he begged for has been granted. Energized by the possibility of revenge against Lower and Afra, he eagerly selects yes. The system initiates the Goblin life reboot process. Fueled by betrayal and rage, Linon is fully committed to vengeance. As a bonus, the system informs him that he has been slightly strengthened. Even a minor enhancement is better than none, and Linon accepts it gratefully. But the system warns him, the danger isn't over. The Sacred Order is still pursuing him, and if he dies again, he will not be resurrected. Linon asks what he can do. The system tells him it can simulate future events with different outcomes every 24 hours. Thrilled by the potential, Linon learns that each simulation earns him points, which can be exchanged for items, and he'll also gain foresight into possible futures. Without hesitation, he commands the system to begin a simulation. Complying with his request, the system presents 3 scenarios to help him escape the cave. The first, warn the other goblins and join forces to fight Lower's men, earning 10 points. The second, abandon the others and escape alone, worth 5 points. The third, hide and hope not to be found but yields 0 points. Linon hesitates, evaluating the best choice. He reasons that even together, the goblins likely can't defeat Lower, making escape the smartest path. Still, to be thorough, he tests all the options to maximize point gain. Predictably, in the first scenario, both he and the goblins are easily defeated by Lower, but he earns 10 points. Concluding that relying on goblins is a losing strategy, he's nonetheless satisfied with the points that he opens the exchange shop, finding numerous powerful weapons, though most are costly. However, a lightweight elven dagger catches his eye. It costs exactly 10 points. Linon purchases it, gaining a 10% speed boost and 15% strength increase. Razor sharp, the dagger can kill with a strike to a vital point. Worried about Kelly, Linon asks why she didn't appear in the simulation. The system responds that due to timeline alterations, she was never captured in this new life and now lives peacefully in the village. Stunned, Linon is deeply relieved. Overjoyed to know she's safe, he says he has fulfilled his promise and can now focus on his goals. After carefully analyzing his options, Linon decides to exit the cave through the path with the weakest guards. Outside, 2 soldiers stand guard. One grumbling about hating goblins, the other telling him to be patient, saying it's an easy job as Linon listens. He hears them discuss a horrifying plan to execute all the girls captured in the cave. Their mission, it turns out, is to eliminate them. With this knowledge, Linon's resolve to take revenge solidifies. If the Sacred Order is willing to kill innocents to preserve their power, what chance does a mere goblin have? He sets a trap. Mimicking a girl's voice, he cries out for help from the cave. One guard responds, preparing to kill the escaping girl. Following Lower's brutal orders, smiling smugly, the soldier invites the girl to step out. But to his shock, Linon ambushes him with the enchanted dagger. Driven by righteous fury, Linon strikes with no mercy, declaring that the goblin's revenge begins now. The wounded soldier convulses in agony. Hearing the noise, the second guard approaches, unaware of what's happened. Grinning, Linon readies himself to continue the assault. His vengeance is only just beginning. Our boy moves toward the other guard, gripping his razor-sharp dagger. The soldier, confused and panicked, can't comprehend what's happening. Then, Linon strikes the guard's face with a powerful blow, sending him crashing to the ground. With incredible agility and seething with fury, the boy pounces on the downed man, just as Linon had anticipated. The dagger is indeed extremely sharp. The boy manages to deliver a deep wound to the soldier during the assault. Overwhelmed and believing the end has come, the injured guard collapses in agony. Desperate, the soldier asks Linon if he understands human language. In that moment, he begs for mercy and pleads with the boy not to kill him. Hoping to appeal to Linon's emotions, the guard shows him a picture of his family, claiming they're waiting for him at home. Realizing the boy hesitated upon seeing the image, and that he could comprehend his words, the soldier comments on Linon's intelligence. He then explains that he's only following sacred orders. Attempting to win Linon's trust, the soldier offers him gold and young women, while secretly plotting a counterattack. Believing Linen distracted by his empty promises, the guard lunges like a treacherous rat, calling the boy a stupid beast. But to his shock, something unexpected happens. Linen, fast and alert, strikes the traitor down before the attack can land. This marks the beginning of the boy's quest for vengeance. Determined to seize this rare chance at reincarnation, Linen is growing increasingly confident that his revenge will succeed. Soon after, he hears Loder's voice nearby and assumes the captain is closing in on him. Quickly putting his plan into action, the boy decides to disguise himself using the guard's clothes. As he flees the scene, clutching the soldier's uniform, Linen whispers that he will soon find Lower and Afra. Meanwhile, Captain Lower and the Holy Maiden arrive at the spot where the guards were defeated. Lower questions if goblins could have killed them. Afra speculates that a mutant monster might be responsible. The captain replies that if this is true and news spreads, the village could face a crisis. Standing over one of the fallen guards, Lower curses his failure to take down a single goblin. Afra, on the other hand, is thrilled by the idea of a mutant creature. With a dark glint in her eyes, she says it would be quite entertaining if that's the case. She adds that if they manage to catch it, she'll have plenty of fun. We then shift to the forest, where Linen has managed to escape. He feels a sense of relief knowing his plan is working, and as he eats, he vows to handle his enemies the goblin way, using brute force to boost his stats and gain influence. With a sinister expression, Linen declares that in this life, every man will wish for death, and every woman will desire him and weep at his feet. Suddenly, he notices movement in the bushes and wonders if Lower's group is still pursuing him. A hooded figure emerges. Not willing to take chances, Linen immediately attacks to prevent a counterstrike. The intruder, startled, trips over a rock. To Linen's astonishment, it's another goblin. Even more shocking, this goblin can speak and express herself just like him. Still cautious, Linen keeps his guard up. She's a stranger who was clearly hiding. Then something even more puzzling strikes him. The goblin has feminine features. Since goblins are usually only male and reproduce with other species, this is unheard of. Terrified, the female goblin begs Linen not to hurt her, explaining she only came to fetch water. This makes him suspicious. How can a little monster speak in full sentences? Linen checks her status and is stunned. If a male mates with a female goblin, he becomes a Goblin God. The boy is amazed. Mating with her could be his golden opportunity to gain the strength needed to face his enemies. Petrified, the girl tells Linen she was sent by her boss to collect water, and if she returns empty-handed, she'll be beaten to death. Surprised to hear another goblin talking to her kindly, she calms down. Linen warns her that her crying could attract Lower's team. She then asks if he can really talk like a human, and he confirms it. Linen recalls that most goblins can't speak coherently, explaining why this girl doesn't interact much with her own tribe. Grateful, she tells him he's very kind. Unlike the others who beat and insult her, she invites him to come with her to her village. Linen sees a promising new path for growth. Eager, he asks if there truly is a goblin tribe nearby. Still cautious, he's unsure whether Lower's group is still on his trail. Prioritizing safety, he chooses to proceed with the girl for now. Staying focused on his mission, he agrees to follow her, saying he had been searching for a way to recruit subordinates and asks to be taken to her tribe. Eventually, we arrive at the goblin village. As the pair approach, the local goblins curiously observe from afar. They begin mocking Linen's clothes, calling him a strange creature for wearing human garb. Linen sees an opportunity. Perhaps this tribe can be part of his vengeance. Trying to win their trust, he declares he's there to join them and asks to speak with their leader. The goblins ridicule him, saying the chief isn't someone just anyone can see. But Linen's new friend speaks up, defending him and insisting he's not dangerous. At that moment, a voice demands to know why the entire tribe has gathered and what all the noise is about. Linen's heart races. The leader has arrived. The goblin chief storms in, furious about the commotion. Linen quickly checks his stats and is stunned to discover that the chief is a high-level goblin. The leader then asks the girl if she brought the stranger, and she confirms she did, saying he had nowhere else to go. Unexpectedly, the chief praises her but then coldly orders the others to kill and eat Linen. The girl is horrified as the goblins begin to surround him. Acting fast, Linen draws his dagger. Showing it to the chief and the others, he claims he knows how to craft such powerful weapons, and that if they let him join the tribe, he can make them all stronger. Intrigued, the chief halts the attack to hear more. Next, the leader walks toward Tion, ambitious and focused on gaining strength. The chief notes that Lin Tion doesn't appear to be lying and asks what kind of weapons he can craft. Seizing the opportunity, Tion tells the leader that if they can find iron ore, he'll be able to forge basic iron weapons, and with time develop even more powerful ones. To persuade the chief further, he explains that these daggers could help them defeat not only monsters but humans as well. Following Tion's explanation, the goblins erupt in excitement, exclaiming that they'll finally have meat and no longer need to hide in the forest. They even start fantasizing about eating fresh elves. Hungry for power, the chief tells Tion he'll give him a chance and commands the goblins to find iron ore within 3 days so weapons can be forged. If they fail, both Tion and the girl beside him will be executed. After issuing his orders, the leader departs. Tion hugs the girl and comments on how cruel the chief is for threatening his own people. He resolves to craft weapons not just to survive but to grow stronger. Tion then sets out toward his goal, accompanied by some goblins and his new ally. While searching for iron ore, the girl, exhausted from walking all day, pleads for a break. One of the goblins, annoyed, kicks her and calls her names, threatening her life if she doesn't find ore. Other goblins join in, striking the girl and calling her lazy, laughing as they threaten to finish her off. Suddenly, Tion throws a rock at one of the goblins attacking her. Defending his new friend, he scolds the group, saying they're here to find or not fight. Irritated, he reminds them what they're supposed to be doing and warns that if they disobey him, they'll be killed by his dagger. Intimidated by Tion's threat, the goblins back away from the girl, now fearing the iron weapons he's promised to forge. They grumble that once Tion is done making weapons, the chief will kill him anyway. Realizing they might be right, Tion grows uneasy, knowing that even if he finishes the task, his fate may be sealed. Looking at the frightened girl, Tion remembers that if a male goblin mates with a female of the same species, he can evolve into a divine goblin. Seeing her trembling, he gently tells her not to cry and calls her Moon. He approaches her and, in an effort to reassure her, cradles her face. Tion asks if she wants to stay with him, promising protection, food, shelter, and safety from harm. Determined to grow stronger, he assures her he always keeps his word, but they are too weak right now. He begs for her help in becoming stronger. Moved by the promise of safety and freedom from abuse, Moon asks how they can become stronger. Tion tells her that if she's willing to bear his children, he'll gain strength and fulfill his vow to protect her. Blushing and confused, Moon admits she's never done anything like that. Trying to comfort her, Tion says not to worry, he'll take care of everything. Then, something surprising happens. Tion leans in and kisses Moon, then gently holds her hands as they prepare to share an intimate moment. Willing to help him grow stronger, Moon pleads with Tion to let her have his children. As they try to conceive, a system notification appears, informing Tion that they will have 7 children, increasing his level cap. As a result, his stats rise, +9 attack, +100 health, and +10 defense. Liana, now physically transformed due to the enhancements, stands beside him. Tion checks his new stats, delighted by his muscular frame and the increased chance of defeating the goblin priest. After outgrowing his clothes, he tosses them aside. Tion comforts Moon, reaffirming his promise to protect her. Looking at him lovingly, Moon calls him gentle. Suddenly, their moment is interrupted by goblins crying for help. A massive magic wolf has appeared and is attacking one of the goblins carrying something. Tion is surprised to see they've found iron ore, but alarmed at the danger. Staying true to his word, Tion tells Moon to wait while he rushes to help. The beast is about to devour the goblin when Tion charges with incredible speed and strikes the wolf's neck with his sharp dagger, saving the little monster. The goblin, still clutching the ore, looks up in shock. With a single blow, Tion has killed the wolf. Absorbing the creature's magical essence, Tion praises the goblin for finding quality ore and instructs them to gather more. Once the group collects all the ore, they return to the village. There, the goblins marvel at Tion's ability to forge real weapons. He demonstrates the power of his creation, showing how effective it is even against beasts. Tion then presents an iron spear made from the forest ore. One of the goblins, now stronger from the hunt, tells the tribe he witnessed Tion defeat a magic wolf to protect them. Hoping to earn their trust, Tion raises the spear and asks if they want such powerful weapons. The goblins cheer in unison. Suddenly, the tribe's chief appears, clearly uneasy about Tion's growing influence. Striking his staff to the ground, the priest acknowledges that Tion didn't lie. He really can make iron weapons. Trying to reassert dominance, the chief challenges Tion. If he wants to remain in the tribe, he must forge 50 more spears within just 2 days. The goblins gasp at the impossible demand and compare the chief's cruelty to that of humans. Meanwhile, Tion is quietly pleased. His plan to win the goblins over is working. To the chief's astonishment, Tion delivers all 50 spears on time. He informs the leader that the weapons are complete. The goblins celebrate, and the priest declares a feast in Tion's honor. Everyone rejoices, thrilled by the promise of abundant meat. During the celebration, Lua offers Tion a special piece of roasted meat, saying it's a gift from the priest himself. Tion accepts and begins to eat, but something feels wrong. He starts to choke and feels faint. Concerned, Lua asks if he's okay. Just then, the tribe's chief approaches, terrifying Lua. Mocking Tion, the chief calls him a fool for trusting him. He admits he saw Tion's ambition early on and warns that anyone who threatens his authority will die. Grabbing Lua, the chief holds her and taunts Tion, questioning if he truly cares about her. Sensing Tion's affection, the chief decides to kill Lua as a lesson, calling her a traitor and preparing to strike. It seems like Tion's end has come. He's poisoned and powerless to stop it. But in a shocking twist, Tion rises and slashes the chief's arm, saving Lua. Everyone is stunned. The boy they thought was finished just turned the tables. With biting sarcasm, our protagonist mocks the old man, calling him a fool and a traitor for falling into his trap. Tion tells the priest that he had already anticipated the poisoning and was merely playing along to make him believe his act had worked. Realizing he had been thoroughly deceived by the boy, the old man becomes furious. Missing an arm and driven by rage, the tribal leader charges at Tion, determined to finish him off. But Tion is ready, with remarkable agility. The boy effortlessly evades the old man's strike and lands another powerful blow to the tribal chief. Tion counterattacks and severs the head of the treacherous rat. Just like that, the era of tyranny ends. Seeing their leader decapitated, the small goblins panic, unsure of what fate now awaits them. Then Linon steps forward. As the goblins grow increasingly uneasy, he delivers an important declaration. Our protagonist announces that, from that moment forward, he will be the new chief of their tribe. Tion boldly informs the goblins that he will lead them to war against the elves and the humans. Raising his formidable dagger into the air, he promises them something irresistible. Under his rule, there will always be meat. Overcome with excitement, the goblins erupt into cheers, ecstatic over their new chief's VOW. Tio seal his command. Tion gestures toward the body of the slain elder and offers it to his soldiers as a feast. In a frenzy, the goblins rush forward, screaming with hunger and madness, and begin to devour the corpse of their former cruel master. With cold resolve, Linon declares that conquering the goblin tribe is just the beginning of his grand revenge. Next, he plans to use the elves to breed a stronger generation of goblins. But something lurks nearby, watching quietly from the shadows. Hidden in the bushes, we see a stunning elf spying on the goblin camp. She's shocked by the events she just witnessed. Suddenly, a massive elven tree structure comes into view, adorned with goblin corpses hanging as a grim warning to trespassers. Inside, a young elf rejoices, Relieved to see her princess return safely, that's when we learn the spy is none other than Princess Cassana. The young elf informs Cassana to wait, her matriarch is currently busy. But the princess insists she has an urgent message. Without delay, Cassana barges into her mother's chambers, claiming she has crucial news from the eastern magical forest. What she sees inside catches her completely off guard. The queen is lounging flirtatiously, surrounded by handsome male elves. Embarrassed beyond words, the princess turns to leave. But the queen casually stops her and asks what was so urgent that it warranted such a dramatic entrance. Cassana composes herself and reports that she witnessed strange activity near the goblin tribe in the forest. Smirking with arrogance, the queen scoffs, asking what could possibly be important about weak and filthy creatures like goblins. But Cassana presses on. She describes finding a devoured black bear, far too powerful to be taken down by mere goblins. She also tells her mother that just days ago, she saw the goblin tribe's old leader killed by a mysterious young man, and wonders if it might be connected. The queen seems to only latch on to one detail, the appearance of a new goblin leader. With her usual arrogance, she orders her daughter to gather a team of elven soldiers and conduct an operation to address any threats. However, she warns not to kill them all. Stroking one of her male companions, the seductive elf queen confides that goblin hearts are valuable ingredients in the tribe's magical potions. Once again, Cassana finds herself humiliated by her mother's inappropriate remarks. She acknowledges the importance of sparing some goblins, despite her discomfort. Then the queen, growing more mischievous, tells Cassana that she's been working hard lately and deserves a reward, an elf lover, or more if she prefers. Thoroughly mortified by the suggestion, the princess hastily exits, promising to investigate that night and report back if anything significant occurs. Meanwhile, in the goblin village, plans are unfolding. Using tree branches as makeshift markers, the goblins draw a rough map of the Forest of 1,000 Wonders. They estimate around 30 tree houses. Pleased with his most loyal soldier's work, Lenon promises him a reward: 2 elf girls once they conquer the elven settlement. The goblin is overjoyed. Energized by his leader's promises, Lenon's right-hand goblin orders the others to begin preparing their weapons. With everything in motion, the new chief begins outlining his battle strategies. Based on his comrades' intel, Tion calculates that each house contains about 2 elves, with 10 more working in the mines, around 70 elves in total. To strengthen the goblin tribe, Tion instructs them to hunt relentlessly in the magical forest. The goblins rejoice at the order, eager for blood and power. This tactic proves effective. Tion rapidly increases his attributes by hunting magical beasts, gaining a variety of skills. Simultaneously, the goblins grow more powerful. Lua and Lentition, 2 notable goblins, continue their hunts, steadily enhancing their capabilities. The tribe begins coordinating group attacks to subdue larger creatures, enabling them to gain power collectively. Thanks to their devouring ability, they absorb the traits of their prey, boosting their overall level to 18 and reaching a total combat power of 250. Strategically, Tion analyzes the situation and estimates that individual elves possess about 200 strength. For the first time, he concludes that the goblin tribe has surpassed the elves in total power. Yet he remains wary. Knowing they're in enemy territory, Lenon activates the simulation system to test an attack scenario. The simulation begins. Confident in their newfound strength, Tion leads the goblin army in a bold assault against the elves. But that confidence proves fatal. Because of Lenon's overestimation, the goblins fall into a deadly ambush. Traps are triggered, and the entire army is captured. Tion himself is taken prisoner by the Elven Queen and publicly hanged in the Forest of 1,000 Wonders, left as a warning to any future goblin rebels. The system concludes. Tion believed he held the advantage, but in truth he was dancing in the palm of his enemy's hand. Shaken by the outcome, Tion realizes that the elves have been monitoring the goblin tribe all along. That's how they orchestrated the ambush so perfectly, reacting swiftly. He orders his goblins to stay alert and use their heightened senses, especially hearing and smell, to detect signs of spies. Soon after, Tion senses something hidden in the woods. Using his magical perception, he pinpoints the source. It's her. Under a glowing moonlit sky, the elf princess hides behind a tree, unaware that she's been discovered. She and her soldiers retreat quickly, hoping to warn the matriarch of the looming goblin threat. But before they get far, glowing arrows rain down. One arrow strikes Princess Cassandra directly, right in the buttocks. She screams in horror, unable to believe what's happening. Moments later, she crashes to the ground, paralyzed. Her soldiers collapse around her, also immobilized by the poison. The goblins cheer, amazed that Tion managed to hit an elf. Still, Tion grows concerned, wondering if the poison is causing strange effects on the prisoner's body. Sarcastically, he tells Cassandra he didn't expect capturing them would be so easy. Thrilled that his plan is working better than expected, he tells the princess they arrived just in time.